Hello, everyone, and welcome to Season 4, Episode 5, and that's overall our 80th episode of History's Greatest Idiots, the show where we go back through all of human history and give you lessons from mistakes people have made in the past that you can learn from. But who are we kidding? We're humans. We like making mistakes, and it's part of the joy of life. Joining me as ever is my wonderful, amazing co-host and dear friend, Derek. Derek, how are you doing, buddy?
I'm doing really good. How are you doing?
I'm doing really good. Just as we were, because we have a minute countdown before this goes live, I let out a massive belch, and I just I was muted, so you didn't hear it, but the smell of ham. It's going to be the smell of ham will linger in this tiny bedroom that I record from, and I apologize to anyone that has to come in after me. Hey fellas, glad to see you, your handsome faces. Oh, Kimberly, that's very nice of you to say that. Thank you so much. Really good to have you here. And before I get going, and I've completely forgotten to bring the actual menu up, but I will do that now. Let's stall. Let's do some filler. Yay. I want to say a massive thank you to everyone that follows us and pays us on Patreon, including, let me go to our audience now and give myself play-by-play. Dilly Bob, we have Andrew Zavara, Kimberly Johnson, and our OG Jesse Christ, our paying members. And also thank you to the non-paying members as well, including Josh Wilson and a person whose name is so rude I can't read it out in here, but it involves pizza and genitalia. So I'm just going to leave that as it is. If you would like to be a Patreon and support us with a little bit of money, you will get access to behind-the-scenes recordings that we do specifically every single month. You'll get access to scripts. You'll get special achievement prizes for staying with us for a year and 2 years. You'll get a free gift when you join. You'll get called out on the podcast. And also you get to interact with us in person. And we're also toying with other features that we might do in the future. Yes.
Magic.
Ad-free magic, potentially.
Ooh. Yeah, because there's ads on this now.
There's ads on our stuff now, which we see pennies of. So if you want to throw us more than pennies, go over to that Patreon, give us some support, and you will interact and be closer to us in spirit and physically, because, I don't know, maybe if you stay with us long enough, I'll buy you a house. Who knows? Also, if you want to follow us on social media, please go to Instagram at History's Greatest Idiots. I would normally talk about Twitter and X at Greatest Idiots, but we are going to get rid of Twitter and X. Mostly because the platform is now, what's a polite way of putting this? It's a hellhole.
Yeah, that works too.
Yeah, it's no longer useful, unfortunately, to us, and no longer helpful, and we do not really want to be around that. So we will be exclusively on Instagram. We may even stream to Instagram if I can work out how to fucking do it. It's complicated, but definitely getting rid of the Twitter in the next few months. So don't bother following us on Twitter, but go to at History's Greatest Idiots on Instagram, where we post all sorts of cool reels. Also, you can find us on YouTube. Just go for History's Greatest Idiots on there, and you can see a bunch of our video content, which unfortunately does have adverts. But, you know, if you follow us on Patreon, you don't have to have that, possibly in the future. Anyway, Derek, you're doing good. And Arizona is good, and you're in the kind of the, what season are you in now? Are you in the cold season that Arizona has? still?
It's no, man, it's been
Oh,
like the 70s, 80s. It's
oh,
been
nice.
awesome. Like there was a little bit of rain and stuff.
Okay.
The weird atmospheric rivers coming
Oh,
through, dumping a
cool.
little bit of rain. They dumping a bunch more where my son's at, which I
Oh,
guess
right.
it's
Yeah, yeah.
actually snowing. He's going to throw pitch in his first baseball game with snow today.
No way. Do they
So
like change the color of the ball in that when
I
that happens?
I don't know. I don't think that it's gonna. No, I
No.
don't think that it's like on the ground. It's the same
Sure.
ball.
Right. There's a thing they do in soccer in environments where it snows, which, soccer's played all over the world. Football is played all over the world. They change the color of the ball to bright, luminous orange, and they leave the snow on the pitch, but they usually just like kind of carve away the outlines of where the penalty box is in the center circle and all of that stuff. But the football becomes orange. And there
Makes
was
sense.
one day where the orange ball burst, and it's the only one they had, so they had to play with a white ball, and it looked like Riverdance. It was really,
That would
really weird. It's just a bunch of people kicking their legs up all over the pitch because you can't see the ball in that moment. But then again, like if they score, they could just claim like, "Oh, it's in the back of the net, is it? Okay, we'll take your word for it."
yeah.
Yeah, I just didn't know that because like obviously American sports have like much higher quality and like they probably clear the pitch and the field. So yeah,
I've never seen a baseball game in snow.
that'd be so cool though. I
I guess
feel like you'd be justified in drinking as much as some people do at baseball games in that moment where you're like, listen, I'm doing this to keep me warm. This is brandy right here,
yeah,
But
seems like it. And then you can bring that big fuzzy dog with his barrel of brandy on him,
oh, that'd be so
drink
cool.
it up, watching a baseball game.
I'm eating this giant hot dog to stay warm and support local businesses. Yeah, totally. So we've had a bunch of really interesting people recently, quite low scoring, quite nice people, really, quite genuine, warm, interesting human beings. I have today. I don't think you could ever say that the person I'll be covering is warm and kind of unscrupulous when it comes to it. So we'll get to that later. But before we get to that, Derek, would you like to tell us about your idiot this episode, please?
Well, I wanted to keep with the low scoring streak,
Good.
but I'm really
like
not
that.
sure though what kind of score this guy's going to get because it could be kind of high, despite the sort of redemption arc turnaround deal in the last recent years. Even though I mean, like he's done some really dumb shit and he hasn't really turned it around that much that I know of. But I guess we'll see, right?
We will see, yes.
Today, I want to tell you about an American leading man in film and television with a career that has spanned over 50 years.
Oh, wow.
He's received numerous accolades from the Golden Globes to nominations for Primetime Emmys. In 1994, he received a Hollywood star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. But
Cool.
I think that's something that you can just buy or somebody can buy for you. So I don't know.
So it costs $5,000. And you have to approach like, I think it's the tourism board or something like that. You pay them $5,000, but you have to be nominated by like a few people. And there was this whole campaign to get Ralph Garman, who is a voiceover in Family Guy and an actor, and he's also a podcaster as well with Kevin Smith. He worked with Adam West for decades. Adam West didn't have a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, and they were like, this is a massive injustice. So they made a massive documentary about it. They did a fundraising thing, and a bunch of people, including the former Robin, Burt, what's-his-face, nominated him, and it was a really nice thing, and it happened like a year or two before he died, so it was really nice that he finally got that, and he deserves it. This man has left an indelible mark on popular culture, so you pay $5,000, you get nominated, you get a star on the Walk of Fame.
Well, some people's earned it more than others, I guess.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, that was a heartwarming story. This one,
it was nice.
Not so much, really. I don't. We'll see. Anyway, he was born Carlos Erwin Estevez on September 3rd, 1965, in New York, to actor Ramon Estevez and artist Janet Templeton.
Okay. I already know who you're talking about. Yeah, that's really cool, though.
You probably all know him as Charlie Sheen. And yeah, that his dad is actually Martin Sheen.
Mm-hmm.
I just wanted to share their real names with you because I didn't know Martin Sheen's name wasn't Martin Sheen.
Yeah,
I don't know
I
why I
was
didn't know
surprised
that.
by that too. He changed his name. I don't know why he changed his name to Sheen from Estevez. Is that like a discrimination thing, or
He changed it to honor a Catholic bishop.
Right. Okay.
When he got into acting, I'm not sure why. And then I don't know where the Martin came from. I know that Charlie came from Carlos's Charlie in Charles.
Yes.
So anyway, Charlie is a middled child. He's got 2
Mhm.
older brothers and a younger sister. All of them are actors.
That's right.
Emilio, you've heard
Mhm.
of, maybe from Young Guns and Mighty Ducks and all of those.
Stakeout
Yeah.
2.
Yep.
Both very funny films.
Ramon and Renee,
Hmm?
not so much, but maybe
No.
you've heard of them. I don't know.
I think only when mentioned in the sphere of the other two, I think.
Yeah, I think I've heard of Renee more
Right.
than Ramon.
Sure. Yeah.
Anyway, the family all moved to Malibu, California when Martin's run in The Subject Was Roses on Broadway ended sometime in the mid 60s.
Cool.
And Charlie got his start in entertainment early, with his first movie appearance coming when he was just 9 years old in his dad's 1974 film, The Execution of Private Slovik.
I think I might have seen that in film school.
Really?
Yeah, in my second degree, that might have been one of the films we saw.
Do you remember if it was any good? I haven't seen it.
It's okay.
If anybody out there has seen it, you got to let me know if it's any good, because I'm not going to look it up.
No.
Anyway, during his high school years, he attended Santa Monica High School with some other pretty recognizable names like Robert Downey Jr.
Mm-hmm.
And he also played a little baseball, was a star pitcher and shortstop.
Oh, cool.
When he wasn't doing that, he was off making Super 8 films with his brother and some of his other friends.
Nice.
No one important, just Rob Lowe and Sean Penn.
Wow.
Acting kind of became his main plan when he was expelled from school just a few weeks before graduation, because he wasn't really showing up and he was getting shitty grades.
Couldn't they have just let that slide for the last few weeks?
I don't know, but I mean, if he's not showing up and he's getting shitty grades, you might just say he quit school to be an actor.
Basically, yeah. At that point, is this before or after he was in Ferris Bueller for that one scene?
This is before.
Right. Okay.
He's still in high school. He's 17, 18.
Okay.
He's still going by Carlos Estevez.
Oh, okay.
Right around this time, he quits school, takes the stage name Charlie Sheen.
Mm-hmm.
And in 1983, his film career really gets to taking off. And he's cast in his first major film, Grizzly 2, The Predator, which was such a huge success that it launched his career into orbit. And it was just, that was a low-budget sequel that actually remained completely unreleased until 2020.
No. And then they only released it with starring Charlie Sheen, like they do when people...
Yeah, well, it premiered in 2020 at the Hollywood Real Independent Film Festival, and it was released January 8th, 2021 through Video On Demand. So if anybody wants to check that out, Charlie's first film's out there.
I bet it's awful.
Yeah, it's a sequel to a bad horror film from the 70s anyway.
Oh, no, that's not good.
It was actually the totally Cold War era teen drama Red Dawn that came out in 1984 that launched his career. The one with Patrick Swayze and all them other people.
Love that film. Love it. Yeah. The idea that what is it? Nicaragua, the Soviet Union, it was North Korea. I can't remember all the countries that get together in this joint evil alliance thing to invade America, but it's weird.
Them commies coming to get us.
Yeah, it is. It's very because they remade it a few years ago, 10 years ago, with the Hemsworths or one of the Hemsworths.
I can't even remember who was in it, but it was I don't know. It seemed cool in the 80s when I was young, and it was all super red, scary, and Cold War-ish and stuff over here.
Yeah, it's a dumb film that you can turn your brain off and enjoy. It's just one of them. That's what it's there for, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it got his career kicked off, and it really kind of took off because that was 84, and then in 86 it was Lucas and Ferris Bueller's Day Off, and Platoon and The Wraith. Yes. And then in 87, it's Wall Street and No Man's Land.
Wow.
And then in 88, it's Young Guns with his brother Emilio. And then 89's my favorite, Major League.
Oh, I love that film.
Wild Thing.
Yeah. That 5-year sequence there. Those are some like iconic films. That's amazing. Was he in St. Elmo's Fire, or was that like every other like young actor in the 80s? I'm gonna look that up. I'm gonna look that up.
Yeah, you should look that up because I didn't research hard enough or write it down. In the 90s, things kind of changed for the films that he was in. He's in dumb shit like Hot Shots Part 2 and Hot Shots, and
which are great films, but yeah, I get what you mean. Like it's a tonal shift for sure.
But he's also using a lot of drugs then, maybe. I don't know. Anyway, in January of 1990, Charlie's fiance at the time, Kelly Preston, was hit by some shrapnel after a gun went off in their home.
Oh, no.
And shortly afterwards, she broke off their engagement. Now, I'm not saying that he shot a gun towards her or at her or anything like that, but something happened there, and
involving shrapnel
may or may not have something to do with the shrapnel.
Yeah, I mean, get the fuck out of there. If parts of a bullet are flying, no matter what the situation, I think you need to get out. Also, sorry, St. Elmo's Fire. It was Emilio Estevez, not Charlie Sheen. I was getting the two confused there.
So, one of them. He was in Men at Work with his brother too.
Oh, that's a good film too. That's a decent film. There's a lot of cool little films here. Yeah.
Oh yeah, he's got even the dumb ones are not bad.
Yeah, I mean, they're entertaining, and I think a lot of that is Charlie Sheen. I don't know if you could ever really call him like a great actor, except maybe in like Platoon and Wall Street and stuff. But he's got a presence, I think. And I find him really enjoyable. Like when you're in something like Hot Shots, which is a dumb film, it's very easy for the main person in a screwball comedy to be like kind of lost while there's like character actors all around them. But actually he does really well with the comedy, even though he's surrounded by like really good comedic actors and stupid stuff. He like plays it completely straight. And I love that. Like it works really nicely. So yeah.
I'm going to actually go back and watch that later.
Those are fun films. They really are.
Yeah, maybe I'll watch Airplane too.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Anyway, so the gun goes off. She decides she leaves it, but that's totally cool with Charlie because he's got a big plan.
Okay.
He's going to date a bunch of porn stars like Ginger Lynn and Heather Hunter, and he's going to do his thing. So that's what he does. The debauchery lasts a little while, and he gets locked down again on September 3rd, 1995. He's married to his first wife, Donna Peel.
Okay.
That same year, Sheen is named one of the clients of an escort agency that
Heidi
was
Fleiss.
Yes.
The files. that book, yes.
He got named as one of the clients at that resort operated by Heidi Fleiss, the madam, doing bad things. And that may or may not have had something to do with Sheen and Peel's divorce in 1996.
I would say so, yeah.
So, oops, just kidding. The debauchery continues. On May 20th, 1998, Sheen suffered a stroke after overdosing from using cocaine.
Wow. How much cocaine was he using to induce a stroke? He's not an old man at this point.
No, it's 98. He's
in his 30s, maybe. When was he born?
65.
60? Oh my god. Early 30s, and he's had a stroke from cocaine use?
That's a lot of coke.
A lot of cocaine. That's like fucking, what's his name? Wolf
of Wall Street guy?
Well, yeah, but I'm also thinking of we covered him, the musician.
Rick James.
Rick James, bitch. Yeah, that's Rick James level of cocaine use right there. That's wow.
Well, he was found in his seaside home by a friend, and he was taken by paramedics to Los Robles Hospital and Medical Center in Thousand Oaks. And he was described as being in serious condition, had his stomach pumped. And a few days later, he was checked into a rehab clinic where he told doctors he didn't intend to stay. And then he left.
Yeah.
And sheriff deputies took him back because I guess he needed to stay. So basically, at this point in his life, he's that cliche party dude that's like, woo, hookers and blow, dude.
Oh my God.
That's what's going on in Charlie Sheen's life in this point late in the 90s. August 11th, 1998, while he's already on probation in California for the previous drug offense, he had his probation extended by 1 year and entered rehab again.
Ooh.
It seems to have stuck for a little while.
Okay, that's good. Yeah.
He got back to not being that guy.
Okay, that's good.
Or injecting cocaine, which is what probably led to the overdose.
Oh, whoa. How hardcore have you gone with your drug use?
Super.
That level, yeah.
Yeah.
Intravenous cocaine use, wow.
That's next level.
Yeah, that's scary level.
So he's cleaned up a little bit. It's 2000. He's on the set of Good Advice. He meets this young actress named Denise Richards. Sort of hits it off with her.
Yeah, I can see why. Now, I heard a rumor, and I don't know if it's true, and I apologize if it isn't true. There was some rumor a while ago that she was one of Heidi Fleiss's madams when she first moved out to Hollywood. I don't know if that's true, but
I hadn't heard anything like that.
No,
but
I heard it years ago. Probably not true, but anyway, possible interesting connection there. I'm going to say it's not true. I don't believe it, but yeah, she's much younger than him at this point, right? Denise Richards.
Yeah, she is way younger. Like this is coming out of like Wild Things, just came out
early 20s kind of thing. Yeah,
right. Like this is fresh off of Wild Things coming out, where she was like sex symbol, hot.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Anyway, he meets her. Then they begin dating in October 2001 after she comes on his show Spin City that he took over for Michael J. Fox.
That's right. He did a good job on that. Really good job. Yeah.
By December, they were engaged. And by June 15th, 2002, they were married because he just falls in love with and marries people.
He does seem to fall fast, doesn't he?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That is a trend with him.
Yeah.
He also didn't make any time or waste any time making babies because the first child, their first daughter, was born in 2004. Their second was born in 2005.
Oh, wow. Straight after.
Things weren't actually so great at home, though, because in March 2005, Denise Richards filed for divorce, accusing Charlie of alcohol and drug abuse and threats of violence. Oof. She also added that he may have been looking at gay pornography featuring boys who looked underage.
I'm going to say that that's part of the nasty divorce thing.
Could have been. He denied it and said that those and her accusations of his attraction to underage girls that she stated in that divorce decree were made aware to the FBI, and they searched his computers and didn't find anything.
I mean, there you go. Like, that's the end. I feel like, I mean, that's kind of a shitty move, but then again, like Charlie Sheen sounds like a bit of a nightmare to live with and be around. So I guess you just like ammunition for a quickie divorce.
Later on, other stuff comes out that'll tie back to that.
Okay.
And it's not necessarily confirmed at all either, though.
Okay.
It's just stuff that happens later.
Actually, I'd never heard that about Charlie Sheen. I'd heard all the wild shit. Never heard that. But anyway, please carry on.
So, the FBI searched his computers. They didn't find anything. Denise Richards and his divorce was finalized in November of 2006. And then there was a custody dispute that happened in that period of time over their two daughters.
Always happens.
Because Charlie was like super against vaccines.
Okay.
And he even sent like legal notice saying that he didn't give his consent to his daughters being vaccinated after they were separated. And it was like mentioned also that their dispute over vaccines might have been an important part of the breakup. She said in an interview in like 2008 that when she vaccinated their daughter Sam, he accused her of poisoning her, and that's when she knew the marriage just wasn't going to work.
Fucking hell, man. Just
that and the whole violent drunk with the drug addiction thing.
I mean, yeah, that's like certainly a component, but I also think like the vaccine is one thing, like how dare you poison my child, all that bullshit about vaccines and stuff, but also like that's quite controlling. Because this isn't just about your personal beliefs around vaccines. This is about your child's life to right to have a life where they don't die of measles-induced horribleness, right. Or so that's like an element of control where she's like, wow, he's not just like being overly controlling with me, he's now extending it to the children, and I have to get out. So I understand that, as well as all the other shit.
Yeah. So their divorce finalizes, their custody dispute is settled, their share in time. Around this same time, he launches a clothing line for children called Sheen Kids. Don't know why I added that. Just an odd little nugget for you guys. Just
never heard that before. I don't know why anyone would ever buy Charlie Sheen's clothing line, even for kids.
Don't know why.
Weird.
Something he did.
Oh well. So, okay.
He seemed to focus on work for a while, and he got real busy with 2.5 Men for a minute. Huge there.
Hit. Mm-hmm. He was making insane money on that.
Oh yeah, he was killing it.
$1 million an episode for like what 5-6 years, 26 episodes a year, something.
Yeah, well, and everybody was liking him too. Like he
was the ratings for that were huge.
Minds.
Yeah.
And then he met another woman he just couldn't live without. And on May 30th, 2008, he married his third wife, Brooke Mueller, who...
Yes, I know that name.
Yeah.
Maybe from this case. Maybe.
Probably.
Yeah.
She gave birth to their twin sons, Bob and Max, on March 14th, 2009. Just boom.
Yeah.
He just knocks them up, marries them, pops out kids. That's what he does.
Goes crazy.
December 25th, 2009. He's arrested for assaulting his wife at the time, Brooke Miller, in Aspen, Colorado, and is released from jail after posting an $8,500 bond.
Wow.
Yeah, it is a terrifying roller coaster ride, and I haven't gotten that deep yet.
Yeah, this is like the surface level Sheen shit that like everyone knew about. And I, as soon as you said the name, I was like, oh, this is going to be a wild one. But yeah, fuck.
Well, he's charged with felony menacing, third-degree assault, criminal mischief, and then in August of 2010, he takes a plea bargain that includes dismissal of all the charges except for the misdemeanor assault.
Oof.
He's sentenced to 30 days in a drug rehab center, not even jail.
Wow.
He gets 30 days of probation and 36 hours of anger management.
Who is this guy's lawyer?
A good one.
That's an incredible deal. Holy shit.
Well, unfortunately, I don't think the anger management classes took. Which, funny thing, he was in a show, Anger Management, I think.
He was.
After this. Maybe he just did that show instead of going to the classes. Maybe that was the problem.
Maybe he's the most method actor ever.
Maybe.
Maybe there's a role coming up that will win him consecutive Oscars for being like an angry, aggressive, drug-abusing actor. Maybe that's what he's been building up to with like this last 50 years of insanity.
It really could happen. But yeah, these classes didn't take because October 26, 2010, the police removed him from his suite at the Plaza Hotel after he reportedly caused $7,000 worth of damage. According to NYPD, Charlie admitted he'd been drinking and using cocaine that night.
Now, wasn't there someone else with him? Or is this a different incident?
I think this is a different incident.
Right. I remember an incident involving a prostitute.
Oh, yeah, this might be that one.
Okay.
Yeah. I didn't dive super far into it because I was like, there's so much shit. I just wanted to surface level this for you guys. Otherwise, I'd be talking for the entire 2 hours myself.
I also, as I understand it, that incident, because I remember hearing it at the time, he was with a prostitute, drugs everywhere, and she'd locked herself in the bathroom to like escape him. So
breaking shit, throwing stuff around
because he was going mad. So that ain't good either, really.
Yeah, now there's also no follow-up on how this impacted his probation or anything either, I guess, because this is October and he just got his probation. Like that's, I guess, 30 days, August, September, October. Oh shit, I guess he's off.
Oh, wow. Lucky. Lucky. Yeah, that's not going to work out so well otherwise.
Yeah. Anyway, in November of 2010, Sheen files for divorce against Brooke Mueller, and things got really messy and weird in his life right about now.
Yeah.
Production of 2.5 Men goes on hiatus in January 2011 while he goes in for substance abuse rehab.
Mm-hmm.
It's his third try in a year.
Oof. Damn.
The next month in February, CBS canceled season 4's remaining episodes because it wasn't going well. Because Charlie Sheen came out and just said some really offensive shit about Chuck Lorre.
Yeah,
and Warner Brothers.
Around about, yeah, isn't this around about the Tiger Blood time?
Just about there. Yeah, he was saying all kinds of crazy stuff about the show's creator and the studio itself, and then they barred him from being on the production lot, so he got fired basically. And then he had a public meltdown on TV and the internet where, yeah, he talks about being a warlock with tiger blood and Adonis DNA, and he was winning.
That's right. That was the phrase that he just literally repeated ad nauseum over and over again. Winning became a thing for him, and it was depressing.
I say it now all the time.
In an ironic way.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and he started posting these videos to YouTube where he's just smoking cigarettes through his nose and cursing out former employers, and then he's doing TV interviews where he's like, he's tired of pretending he's not special, and like he's not here's a good quote. I'm tired of pretending I'm not special. I'm tired of pretending I'm not some total bitchin' rock star from Mars.
Wow. Okay, Charlie.
Fuck yeah.
Seems like rehab did you the world of good.
Yep. On March 1st, 2011, police removed his twin sons from his home. According to People magazine, social services took the kids after Mueller obtained a restraining order against him.
Wow.
In the document, she claimed that she was concerned that he was currently insane.
I mean, yeah.
He said that he would fight for his kids, and he texted People magazine that he was born ready, winning. Now, Mueller may have called to have the boys removed because also on March 1st, 2011, Sheen was living concurrently with 24-year-old porn actress Brie Olson and 24-year-old model and graphic designer Natalie Kenley, who he collectively nicknamed his goddesses.
Okay.
So his kids and him and these two model porn stars were just, kicking it.
Chilling. Yeah, that's not a great environment, I think.
That could have had something to do with her whole insane claim.
Yeah, I think so.
But, also, maybe to prove that he wasn't insane, he decided he was going to do this nationwide tour. Oh, geez.
Great quote from Kimberly. I'm a winning tiger blood drinking rock star from Mars and completely sane. I have a note from the rehab center that says I'm completely sane. Also tiger blood.
Why is your note in crayon, sir?
Why does it say sane underlined 3 times?
Exactly. Well, he goes on this nationwide tour. I don't know what the hell the tour is. Stand up, spoken word. It's
Oliver Reed impersonation.
Yeah, it's this tour. My violent torpedo of truth. Defeat is not an option tour. Whatever the hell that is.
What the fuck?
It starts day after April Fool's in Detroit, April 2nd. Most of the people that showed up to that show say they found it disappointing.
Yeah, I wonder why.
It was one of the fastest shows to sell out with Ticketmaster forever, but looking into it, most of the tickets were still available on third-party sites after the show was going on. He did make some changes for his Chicago show. Woohoo!
Sorry, didn't mean to do that.
And I guess it got better, but not related to the show, maybe, or that he was going insane at the time.
Sure.
But Brie Olson left him in April of 2011, and then Kenley left him in June of 2011.
So the porn star went running.
Yes.
Telling. Yeah, wow. Yep. Shit.
And that's okay with him because he's planning this party that he's going to have. Yeah. Bet you didn't know this. On August 13th, 2011, Charlie Sheen hosted the 12th annual gathering of the Juggalos.
No.
He sure did.
What the fuck?
He received a mixed reaction from the audience, but
That's a surprise.
he describes himself as a juggalo. And he even wore, the Hatchet Man hat around to the production of Anger Management and to
Wow.
some appearances. But yeah, he hosted the 12th annual gathering of the Juggalos.
How much orange drink did he get covered in while he was on stage at that? Because they throw all sorts of shit, and it's usually that drink.
But I bet they would have just loved him, man.
I kind of feel like, yeah,
Yeah.
he's sort of the kind of person they want there. They've done this because a bunch of wrestlers, the Insane Clown Posse, have their own wrestling federation called JCW, which stands for Juggalo Champion Shit Wrestling. And they put on a bunch of cards, but the crowds are always scary, and some of them are armed. So, like, if they don't like the wrestlers, then the wrestlers are like, okay, I'm going to leave politely before I get battery acid poured on me by someone. So, yeah, the Juggalo scene, like, I don't believe the FBI's thing of, like, they're an organized criminal organization. I think that's a ridiculous thing, but they are pretty fucking scary. So, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they do their thing. They are their people, and he's one of their people.
Charlie Sheen is definitely
himself. Yes.
Yeah.
So things were just kind of wild for him for a little while, doing his Juggalo thing. In February 2014, he became engaged to another former adult film star.
Okay.
Brett Rossi, or Scotty Rossi.
Okay.
They had their wedding planned for November of 2014 because that's the way he rolls. The engagement was broken off in October with the announcement that the two had mutually decided to separate.
She ran so far away.
He stated that he decided that his children deserved more focus than the relationship does right now.
I mean, if that's the case, then that's a very mature thing for Charlie Sheen to decide. I don't know if I believe it, though, unfortunately.
I don't know either, but in November 2015, he publicly revealed that he was HIV positive. And
that's right.
He'd been diagnosed 4 years earlier.
Ooh.
And then Rossi sued him after his announcement.
Oh.
For various allegations like assault and battery, emotional distress, false imprisonment, and negligence.
That's bad, man.
Now, on a positive note, his HIV positive disclosure corresponded with the greatest number of HIV-related Google searches ever recorded in the United States.
That's right. I remember he went on a little tour of talk shows to talk about it, and one of them was the Graham Norton experience over in the UK, and he appeared at the start of the show, just him by himself, talking to Graham Norton, who is an openly gay man, one of the first to appear on British television. And they talked about HIV, AIDS, how anyone could get it, the treatment for it, how to avoid living a lifestyle where you can get it. And it was actually really informative. He didn't appear, because normally Graham Norton has a couch full of people and they're all a little bit drunk and they're all like sharing stories, but Charlie Sheen wasn't there for the rest of it. And I'm actually glad he wasn't, because the idea of Charlie Sheen coming out and doing this really somber discussion about HIV and AIDS and then getting a little bit drunk and talking to like Hugh Jackman, like it just wouldn't quite work, I think. So,
right. Yeah. Well, he did good things. He did that tour. And it was actually during that tour, in the 3 weeks following his disclosure, there was about 2.75 million searches, or more searches than expected, that included the term HIV, and 1.25 million searches directly relevant to public health outcomes that included the search terms for condoms, HIV symptoms, and HIV testing.
That's brilliant.
Yeah.
That's super positive.
They call it the Charlie Sheen effect, I guess.
Love it.
HIV awareness, which he's been a long time supporter and proponent of research and help, going all the way back to the early days, and like the I can't remember that kid's name, Ryan White.
The early 80s.
Yeah.
But
anyway, in 2015, he did an interview where he described himself a constitutional Republican and discussed.
What the fuck does that mean?
He follows the Constitution and he's a Republican.
Okay.
And he
Great.
decided he wanted to run for U.S. president in 2016, which
fuck.
would have been awesome.
It would. It would. I agree.
But no, he didn't. So we had no warlock president. Anyway, he spoke fondly of George W. Bush, and he said he did the best he could, and he talked all kinds of shit on Donald Trump. So I guess he's got that going for him.
Yeah.
He still scathes about him and calls him a charlatan and says that he wishes death upon him, which is taking it next level. But I mean,
it's a bit far. Charlatan, yes.
Yeah.
Death upon someone, probably not.
He Charlie Sheen it.
Yeah. It also is really interesting because his politics are like the polar opposite of his old man's. Martin Sheen is a notorious liberal, like leaning, famous person.
Well, I honestly don't know if he really knows what his politics are.
Maybe he's just doing it to piss off the old man. You know,
it could be.
Yeah,
it could be. I don't know. Anyway, April 2016, he does an interview where he says his monthly child support payments for his 2 ex-wives. He gets them reduced from 55,000 to 10,000 because he's not making that 2.5 men money.
Oh, right. Wow. Okay.
Then in that same month, it's announced that he's under investigation by the LAPD for threatening to kill his former fiance, Scotty Ross.
Jesus, man. Stop threatening people.
Because of the lawsuit over the AIDS thing.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Then in 2017, the big thing happens. The National Enquirer runs this story from an actor that was on a movie that alleges in 1986 he raped the 13-year-old co-star Corey Haim on the set of Lucas.
Oh, is that an allegation?
Yeah.
I hadn't heard this. Wow.
That case got settled in 2018. Haim's mother, Judy Haim, identified a different actor as her son's rapist on the Dr. Oz show and told Entertainment Tonight that Sheen never raped her son, calling the claims made up.
Yeah.
So,
first of all, just want to say a big hello to Familiar Wilson's Media. Thank you so much for joining us. It's so great to have you here. That thing, I mean, that's shocking, but the Corey Haim sphere of allegations and stuff, like it's very confusing, and a lot of it's conjecture, and it's kind of snowballed online. I think a lot of like conspiracy theories have gone up around it about like powerful Hollywood entities and stuff like that. What's this? Corey Feldman said it was him as well.
That's what I was getting to too.
Corey Feldman.
Well, it was in his documentary in 2020, the My Truth, the rape of the 2 Coreys, that he claimed that Sheen did it, and then it was corroborated by Feldman's ex-wife and Jameson Newlander that he did it. But Sheen said that it was just made up and it was sick and twisted and outlandish. So it's
that's a difficult one.
Yeah,
and the fact that Corey Haim's ex-wife said that he corroborated it, like that's this is a really difficult one. Wow. Okay.
It's tough to say, and Corey Haim has passed away, is he not?
Yeah, exactly. If it were Corey Haim saying this happened, Corey Feldman is not what you would call a reliable witness, but the fact that there are multiple people claiming like lends a little bit of credence to that. But yeah, it's wow, that's
that ties back into the Denise Richards accusing him of looking at that imagery stuff, because if that was happening or that was stuff that was mentioned before, you wonder. I don't know. Not for me to say, though.
Thing is, though, like if it were the case that this had been part of his life, Charlie Sheen is a very extreme human being.
Yes, he is.
And he is notorious for a number of things because he's an addict, which, you know, we shouldn't ever really judge anyone for being addicted. It is an illness.
Right.
I feel like if he had had a proclivity for that specific thing, we'd have heard more about it. We've heard a lot of the other stuff.
I think so too, because he just does what he does and doesn't really. I mean, if he's covering stuff up, then Jesus, he's bad at, like, he misses some big shit.
Exactly. Like, he's the whole porn star thing, abuse of various partners, violence, drug addiction, alcohol addiction, all of them extremes, all of them very public, none of them really discreet at all. I feel like we would have heard more. I feel like this is just people sort of like throwing stuff out there to get more attention for what they want and maybe getting money.
Possibly.
You know? I don't want to say it's not true, because who knows, but it feels weird that we know all of this stuff about Charlie Sheen, which he tried to keep secret, but then there's like one or two instances of this. Like, it doesn't quite add up for me. So, yeah.
So coming off of that accusation, he goes to Australia. And he does an Evening with Charlie Sheen tour. I don't know what the hell that is either. But
I don't think I want to go on that evening.
Hey,
I think I want an evening inside.
Right. And I take most of Corey Feldman's stories with a grain of salt too, Bright Eyes.
Yeah. Great big pinch of salt. Yeah. Yeah. So he's in Australia.
While he's in Australia, he films an advertisement for a car service company called UltraTune.
Okay.
Which was to be their next installment of their controversial Unexpected Situations series, where he's featured alongside Purina Portia, Laura Lindell, Tanya Hansen.
Are these porn stars?
They're really sexy ladies.
Oh, okay.
The UltraTune ads typically get the most complaints annually in Australia for alleged breaches of advertising standards. So that's what he did while he was in Australia.
We know that Australia is quite strict on advertising and marketing standards, because they were the first country to outlaw power balance back in the 2000s. Yeah, they were like, you are making false claims about the efficacy of this thing's scientific abilities, and eventually it got to the point where they either paid a massive fine or they admitted that their product was bullshit. And they went, yeah, it's bullshit. Sorry, going bankrupt now. Bye. So yeah, Australia takes that shit quite seriously. So I guess maybe they're skirting right around the edge of controversy with that. That's really interesting.
Oh, this is just super scantily clad. They're risque car service ad things. Okay. Anyway, money's getting a little tight maybe for him, because he had lived in Beverly Hills up till this point for many years.
It's very expensive place to live.
To sell his home in 2020 for $6.6 million.
Decent money.
Now he lives in a rented house in Malibu, kind of like his character on 2.5 Men.
I don't know if that's the smartest move. I think he needs to get out of California. I think this man needs to go. 6.6 million. Okay, let's say he's got debts and he's got to pay off alimony and all of that stuff. Let's say he's left with 3 million. Right? Let's say he's got 3 million. 3 million will buy you a very nice estate somewhere that isn't California, maybe where you can chill the fuck out a little bit. You know?
Yes.
You have the ability to make a positive contribution to work. I would do it somewhere that isn't California or New York. I would avoid major metropolitan hubs, to be honest.
Well, he's going to try and make a comeback.
Okay.
Because here's where the redemption comes, maybe.
Okay.
Maybe.
Up for this? Let's hear the redemption.
As of today, Charlie has reported that he's going to be 6 years sober here, or he is 6 years sober now.
Good for him.
Consistent lifestyle. It's all about the single dad stuff and raising his twin 14-year-old boys.
Love that.
Wakes up around 4:30, 5 o'clock, gets an early jump on the news and working out and answering emails.
Good for him.
Gets his kids ready for the day.
Yeah.
He's also finally giving his blessing for his 19-year-old daughter, Sammy Sheen, to have her OnlyFans account.
Nothing wrong with that at all.
Well, initially, he staunchly objected, saying that she needed to keep things classy.
Fuck it. Are you kidding me, Charlie?
Yeah, but he changed his mind after she showed up in a Mercedes and shit. And
after she showed him the earnings.
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess I'll leave it up to you. He's supportive.
Mm-hmm.
Denise was supportive right from the beginning of Sammy's account, and then she launched her own OnlyFans account with her. So
No way.
not like with her, but
Wow.
Denise Richards is $25 a month, and Sammy is 19 something. That's what it was in the article. I
Family business.
didn't get them.
Jesus, I didn't know that. Didn't know Denise Richards had a.
Yeah,
not that I go and
it was on TMZ.
$25 a month for that, but wow. I mean, good for her. I mean, if you're not going to go on, what's that thing that I was on very briefly? The where you can pay to send messages to people. Cameo, yeah. I mean, if she's not doing the Cameo money, then go for it. You know, I have absolutely no issue with anyone doing OnlyFans, especially with the kind of money they can earn now. If you can make good money doing that, then yeah. What's this from Kimberly? Come on, guys. He's batshit crazy, but he's still a dad. Yeah. Crazy, insane people can be good dads too. Look at the British royal family. Jesus Christ. Yeah. That's really interesting. I hadn't heard any of this redemption stuff. It sounds really positive, and I love that for him and for his family.
Yeah, he's actually gotten sole custody of Max and Bob, the twins, until Brooke Mueller can pass drug tests.
Oh, that's really sad. I hope she gets better.
Yeah. She got arrested for some assault charges in Colorado too herself, so
she's going through her own rough time right now, and I hope she's getting the support she needs too. This is positive. I obviously, I would really, if Charlie Sheen ever listens to this podcast, which who knows, he's got time on his hands a little bit, I guess. Charlie, good for you. We really think that this is a really positive turn for you. I mean, it's been a hell of a life. What is he now, like 50s, 60?
Was 65 to 2024, so
wow. Okay, so yeah, you know, this is a good time to kind of chill out a little bit, have a kind of a later career, kind of doing some more interesting stuff. He sounds like he's in a healthy place mentally, emotionally. That's good.
What kind of roles do you see him in as an old man? Because what is 65 to 2024? That's 59.
Yeah. So I'm assuming like an older dad.
Okay.
So, you know,
not quite Judge yet.
No. Another 10 years for Judge roles. No, I think at this point he's beyond the love interest roles. I think he's now more of the kind of the wizened, supportive kind of mentor position. I definitely think, because he had a very brief cameo in the sequel to Wall Street, which was fucking terrible. But I feel like Charlie Sheen, if he's like an even-keeled Charlie Sheen, is actually kind of interesting. If you've seen him in Ferris Bueller, this is a weird example, because in Ferris Bueller, he's meant to look strung out.
Yeah.
And he did that really well. But he's really mellow and laid back. And he's like, he becomes a kind of a mentor in that moment, a kind of a genius muse type thing, and he's telling Ferris Bueller's sister like some truths, and like I could see him doing that. I could see him being like a guiding light character. Totally could see him doing that. I think he should stay away from comedy for a little bit, do some more serious work. I feel like the idea of a comedic Charlie Sheen at this point is a little bit too raw, so I think do some serious stuff, rebuild your reputation that way, and then maybe dip your toe back into the comedy thing.
So like Platoon 2. No?
maybe not quite that dark. He could be the Willem Dafoe character with the arms out. I think definitely like dramatic roles, maybe like an older detective thing. I could definitely see like a bit of a noir. Oh yeah, man, that would work. I'd see Charlie Sheen in True Detective.
Yeah,
that would work for me.
Get on it.
Yeah, film people. Hey, we're not giving something to Netflix for a change. I think he'd be great in a comedy. I do think he would. I think we need to give it a couple of serious roles. So people are like, oh, Charlie Sheen. Yeah, you remember this guy? Yeah, he can act. I think we need that, and then he can do the comedy stuff. Now, as far as scoring goes, it's really difficult. I would love to know. I mean, if you look at the people that Charlie Sheen grew up with, you mentioned some of them: Rob Lowe, Sean Penn, obviously his brother Emilio Estevez. He's part of the Hollywood Brat Pack scene in the 80s, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's that crew. You look at that group of people, actors, actresses, all of that. A fair few of them have had issues with drug or alcohol or violence or sex, or all of them in some instances. And I feel like he's probably one of the most well known for those issues. I mean, Robert Downey Jr.
Yeah, but he had look at his bounce back though.
Robert Downey Jr.'s bounce back is all time, and he even described to a judge his relationship with alcohol, saying that it's like I like the taste of lead and I have a gun in my mouth. Yeah, that's how he described it. But his comeback was, and the way he did it was just settling down, finding a lifetime partner, investing in his children. And like looking into interesting projects, engaging his artistic side and stuff like that. So I genuinely hope that Charlie Sheen, this course he's on now, because it feels like it's quite a wholesome turnaround. It's gone full circle now.
It seems like it, yeah.
We can't ignore the stuff that, I mean, he's largely gotten away with. Let's be honest, this man should probably have done some jail time at some point. So for the spousal abuse, which sounds, really serious. I mean, if someone wants to destroy their lives with drink and drugs, that's their business. Obviously, when it spills over into destroying their family, that's when it's become a problem. And also having an addiction, and like there seems to be a lot of ego involved in some of his decisions and questionable decisions at that. So with the spousal abuse and the ego stuff, I'm going to go 74.
Okay.
Partially because when you look at an addiction like his, which is very intense, there's got to be some sort of trauma in there somewhere, or something that happened that created an environment where that was his default decision-making thing, drugs, drink, all of this.
Yeah. I wasn't able to find anything.
Yeah,
but
that doesn't mean it didn't happen, but it's like this
somewhere
be
back
something
there
happened.
When they got to California, maybe.
Yeah, it's California, it's the early 70s, kind of a lot of weird shit going on around then. But I don't know, I feel like I hold out hope for Charlie Sheen's continued recovery into the world at large, and we do love a good redemption arc. And I if anyone out there is struggling with addiction, one of the best things you can do is talk to people about it and get the help that you can, whether it's free or paid for, whatever it is. Talking is the first step to getting through an addiction. So open up to people that you trust with the information and seek help. But I'm glad that this no longer controls his life. Genuinely really glad about that. So,
absolutely.
Yeah. So we want you to do better, Charlie, and we believe you can. So good luck. That's a really
I'm totally happy
one.
with the 74.
Yeah, I'm happy with a 74 too. I don't want to go too big because obviously he's done some shit, but I don't think we should really judge him harshly for some of the addictive mistakes he's made in his life, especially now that he's trying to turn his life around. He sounds like someone who wants to get better.
I think so.
Yeah, and that's the important thing, is that he knows he's done these terrible things, so he wants to get better. If someone is in that position, they should have full support from society at large. So good for Charlie Sheen, and we hope his life continues to improve. Great work. Now, from one controversial, iconic person to another. Now, I would say that Charlie Sheen is someone who has probably wanted to do better than they did at various points in their life, had that introspective moment where they were like, I made some really bad mistakes, I did some terrible things, I should have been punished for them, and now I'm trying to make good. The next person, I don't think had that level of introspection. I don't think they ever thought they did anything wrong, and I think it probably damaged their career as a result. So let me tell you the story of Malcolm McLaren, the man who is either a pioneer or a villain, depending on who you talk to. So, Malcolm Robert Andrew McLaren was born on the 22nd of January 1946 in a flat at 47 Carrisford Road, Stoke Newington, northeast London, to Peter McLaren, a Londoner of Scottish extraction, who was at the time serving with the Royal Engineers, and Emily Isaacs, the daughter of Taylor Mick Isaacs, an independently wealthy Rose Corey Isaacs, whose father had been a Portuguese Sephardic Jewish diamond dealer. So really mixed background here.
Okay.
To start with. Yeah. Malcolm McLaren's parents divorced when he was 18 months old.
Well, that's early.
So, yeah. Really early, after Peter McLaren left the family home due to his wife's serial infidelity. McLaren later alleged that her lovers included the owner of the enormous high-end London department store Selfridges, Sir Charles Claw, and Sir Isaac Wolfson, owner of Universal Stores. So
his mom's just banging everybody with a title?
According to Malcolm, but don't...
Oh, okay.
In the same way that Corey Feldman shouldn't exactly trust everything that comes out of his mouth, Malcolm McLaren is a notorious liar. So be very careful with this. But an early divorce like that, infidelity, arguments when, you know, the child Malcolm has just learned to walk and talk, and like that's damaging, right?
Yeah,
there.
It is. Yeah, you remember some stuff you don't remember there.
Exactly, and it influences the way you behave. Subsequently, Malcolm was raised by his grandmother Rose, kind of an early window into potential future mindset of not trusting people and not being able to form meaningful bonds with people. I feel like that's going to be the early lesson here.
Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah. At age 16, McLaren left Orange Hill School with just 3 O-levels, which is, it's not a lot. Like, that's the bare minimum you can get. O-levels now are GCSEs. You have 9 to 10 of them each level. So you between 15 and 16, you do your GCSEs. If you get 10, great. If you get 8, great. You have to get at least 5 to kind of move to the next level of education. If you don't, you have to retake them. He got 3, which back in the day was enough to get you to the next level of education, but he chose not to go to the next level of education. He left school at 16 and was briefly employed in a handful of jobs before attending classes at the influential and really notorious St. Martin's School of Art, then undertaking a foundation course at Harrow School of Art. So I need to talk about St. Martin's College here. It's a breeding ground for some of the most creative and influential British musicians, designers, artists of like the last 70 years. So the alumni includes designers Giles Deacon, Stella McCartney, as in Paul McCartney's designer daughter, Alexander McQueen, who is a fashion designer who died a few years ago, Lee McQueen, just a brilliant genius. John Galliano, also another famous designer. Artist and sculptor Anthony Gormley went to St. Martin's College. Musicians Mia, Maya, yeah, and Paper Planes, amazing song, and an amazing artist as well. Also, Jarvis Cocker, the lead singer of Pulp, went to St. Martin's College. Their most famous song, Common People, is about a stuck-up posh girl from St. Martin's College, and it's one of the most like it's one of the best songs of the 90s. If you get a chance to listen to Pulp, I'm going to talk about music a lot in this one. Pulp's song Common People, it's about a super rich person who like, oh my god, poor people are so cool, I want to be just like them. And Jarvis Cocker's like, oh, you do you fucking tourist. And like the whole song's really interesting, the way he poses it. He talks about like get a job and live in a flat above a shop, cut your hair and get a job, and what was it, when you're in bed at night watching roaches climb the wall, it won't be real because your dad could end it all with a phone call.
I wonder how much of this snippets we could sneak in here before they strike us.
Well, we're going to get a lot more because we're going to talk about music acts in a minute, and I'm pretty certain they'd strike that. But no, we definitely couldn't play Pulp. But I would recommend there's a bunch of cool Pulp songs, but go and listen to Common People. Really interesting lyrics in that song, and also so Jarvis Cocker, lead singer of Pulp, and a legendary actress and model Anita Pallenberg also went to St. Martin's College.
That sounds really familiar, and I don't know
Yeah,
why.
bunch of these names will sound familiar. You won't necessarily be able to instantly recognize them, but if you Google like John Galliano, Alexander McQueen, Anita Pallenberg, I think she was linked to the Rolling Stones as well. So go ahead and Google these people. Really interesting, and St. Martin's is just churning these people out every year. Amazing place to be. Other art institutions attended by McLaren over the next 7 years included the Southeast Essex School of Art in Walthamstow and Goldsmiths, another very famous high-end art school. In October 1971, McLaren took over the back part of the retail premise at 430 King's Road in Chelsea, West London. Really great place for cheap clothes. To this day, really great place for like individual designer outlets that are trying to found their name and stuff. So get really cool clothes. He sold rock and roll records, refurbished 1950s radiograms, and dead stock clothing under the name In the Back of Paradise Garage. So at the time, at the time, everyone is being sold flares, and like everyone's still wearing like cheesecloth shirts. And Johnny Rotten has this thing where he's like, trash was piling up in the street 10 foot tall because of the strikes, and police were putting down racial riots in Brixton, and people are still wearing flares like nothing's changed for the last 5 years. And he said, you should be wearing the trash bags. That's dealing with the reality you're in. And it's really interesting because that's kind of what happens. With the assistance of art school friend Patrick Casey, McLaren converted the entire ground floor of the store and renamed it Let It Rock, initially selling clothing, dead stock, and military surplus, and objects he'd sourced, stolen. When the shop became a success, he enlisted the help of his then girlfriend and soon-to-be wife and future fashion icon Vivienne Westwood, who... Yeah,
that one sounds real familiar.
Real familiar. She died recently, but Vivienne kind of revolutionized fashion. So Google Vivienne Westwood. Some of the most expensive clothes you will ever see, but wow, really weird stuff. I think Lady Gaga wore a bunch of her stuff. Really chic stuff, but also weird as fuck. And when I talk about where she came from with that, you'll understand why. Westwood would customize and repair original clothing to make facsimiles of the original that had obvious repairs using pins and hooks, and basically like just stitching, like post-apocalyptic almost, stitching the clothing together. These choices and this aesthetic is the birth of punk clothing and fashion.
Aha!
That's where it comes from. Old military stuff stitched together, sewn together, thrown together with donkey jackets and like bits of material and old shirts. And the famous one that Johnny Rotten used to wear, which was a knackered, stinking, ripped up, torn to shreds Pink Floyd t-shirt with the phrase that he's written on himself in red ink, I hate, above the Pink Floyd logo. Really cool aesthetic. McLaren and Westwood were married until 1980, and their son, Joseph Correa, founded the high-end lingerie brand Agent Provocateur, which was another fixture in British fashion. It was the place to get, like, for rich people to get kinky clothes. Let It Rock was patronized by Teddy Boys. For those of you who don't know, Teddy Boys, kind of similar to Greasers, if you think about like that from the 1950s, only this is the early 70s. So they've got the greaser look, they've got the coif and the quiff and all of that and the greased up hair, but they're also like quite high-end fashionable suits at the same time, and a little bit rockabilly look to them as well. It was them and the punk kind of people were slightly behind them, and you also had the mods as well, who were like Quadrophenia, the Who, like that sort of stuff, which like tighter clothing and short fringe haircuts and stuff like that. So there's a bunch of weird. Go on.
They were like the mods, but with cooler hair.
But like the mods with cooler hair and like slightly more 50s suits, whereas the mods were like kind of more 60s, I guess you could say, like more utilitarian, whereas the Teddy Boys would have quiffs with like quite flamboyant stuff and neckties and bullhorn neckties and stuff. So McLaren and Westwood designs also started to appear in such theatrical and cinematic productions as the Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Oh.
Shit, yeah. They designed the costumes for the Rocky Horror Picture Show. And That'll Be the Day, which I don't know about that, but Rocky Horror Picture Show.
That's that's good stuff right there. That's
a
weird.
big name.
Yeah.
In the spring of 1973, the store was renamed Too Fast to Live, Too Young to Die, and began selling original 1950s inspired leather clothing. So they're shifting slightly away from the Teddy Boy aesthetic here. Among the commissions were costumes for Ken Russell's film Marla. Ken Russell kind of considered himself the savior of British cinema. He made Women in Love with Oliver Reed.
Okay.
So, yeah. In August 1973, McLaren and Westwood visited New York to participate in the National Boutique Fair, where they began an association with the New York Dolls.
Hey, we were just talking about them.
There we go. We were just talking about them. Really, really influential band. They started supplying them with stage wear and joining the group on tour through the UK and France so that they could kind of make new gear for them and like repair their stuff. In October 1974, he renamed his outlet to just Sex.
Oh,
big capital letters. Just fetish gear in the window. This is central. This is like Chelsea and London, just bondage gear right in the window. So he's done away with the Teddy Boy stuff and he's gone with like leather and kink inspired stuff.
Okay. Well, I mean, just you got to do your thing, you know?
He wanted to shock people, but also draw in the crowd of people that were happy to shock people by what they wore. Very clever. In January 1975, McLaren and Westwood designed red patent leather costumes for the New York Dolls and used the Soviet-style hammer and sickle motif for their stage show in the US as an attempt to attract attention through provocation. Those are kind of perfect things for them. The ploy was not successful, and the Dolls soon broke up, with guitarist Johnny Thunders specifically naming McLaren as the reason why we broke up. That's not good.
Oh, yeah. It's your fault, dick.
It's you. You arrived and everything went to shit. McLaren instead blamed Thunders and drummer Jerry Nolan's drug addictions for the split. He'd do that a lot. In the future. McLaren returned to Britain, where his newest project would change the course of music history forever. From 1974, McLaren had advised Sex customers Paul Cook, 18 years old, and Steve Jones, 19 years old, on their musical aspirations, having proposed that one of his shop's assistants, Glenn Matlock, 18 years old, joined them as the bass player in a group McLaren named Cutie Jones and his Sex Pistols.
Huh.
Yeah.
That sounds familiar but different.
Familiar but different? It's about to get a whole lot more familiar. The band got their first instruments through Steve Jones, who was a kleptomaniac, thanks to the training he'd received through his parents, who were both kleptomaniacs and stole to survive, and expert burglar. This 18-year-old kid was burglarizing massive department stores and he just like picked things up and shove it in his pocket wherever he was. He stole from Sex, the shop, and that's why he was like, do you want to be in a band with me so that you stop stealing my fucking shit?
And then he brought him the guitars. He just stick a guitar down his pants and bring it over for him.
It's even bigger than that. This is a fucking amazing story. Steve Jones managed to break into the Hammersmith Odeon. He dressed as a roadie because at the time, David Bowie was setting up for his Ziggy Stardust farewell tour.
Okay.
So all the roadies, who are quite young and look a bit like Steve Jones. Steve Jones is a weird looking dude. Like, he looks like a roadie. They were all bringing the equipment in, and Steve Jones is just going around stealing it and wheeling it back out again. Stole guitars, mics, huge high-end amps, and even memorabilia that he could resell.
Wow.
He stole something like £20,000 worth of equipment from David Bowie, who had no idea what was going on.
Picturing the roadies bringing it in, and he's just bringing it back out.
No, lads, he doesn't want this one. He wants a different one. Nah, I'm just going to take it out and get the other one. He just fucked off with like 5 guitars.
That's awesome. I mean,
Glenn Metlock walked in. He was like, "Oh my god, you've got so much gear." And he was like, "Yeah, I nicked it from Bowie." Oh my god.
Oh man,
it's kind of the perfect start for a punk band, really.
Yeah.
However, the start didn't go so smoothly. In the summer of 1975, if you're going to steal, this is how you do it. Yes, exactly. Like, he was really good with it, quite brazen as well. In the summer of 1975, McLaren ejected frontman Wally Nightingale from the lineup because he did not fit McLaren's vision for the band's image. McLaren successfully turned the other bandmates against Wally, who would basically isolate themselves from him and started slagging him off in the music press and stuff. And Wally commented, "McLaren was devious and clever. He'd see things other people didn't see, and I suppose that's what gave him his edge." I mean, that, and the fact he's, a successful businessman in his late 20s and you're all teenagers. So
yeah, so he's manipulating them into kicking a dude out of the band
already, and they've not even fucking launched yet. So yeah. In his one-time associate Bernie Rhodes, who would later become the manager of The Clash, claimed he spotted a new frontman in a different customer at Sex. It was amongst a group of lads that would come in from North London, who were all called John, all of them, like a fucking Clockwork Orange gang of Johns coming through the door. 17-year-old John Lydon, then sporting green hair and torn clothes with the words "I hate" written on a Pink Floyd t-shirt above the band's name. Lydon's audition was the Alice Cooper song 18, his actual age at the time. Perfect. He performed it using movements resembling the Hunchback of Notre Dame and Richard III, pulling weird faces and contorting his body and looking angry and staring like this and stuff, moving in an odd way and generally trying to portray a deformed, wide-eyed weirdo.
Okay.
Johnny Rotten fell into a coma when he was 7 years old, and he was in a coma for a year, and it wiped his memory clean. He doesn't remember anything from his childhood before that. Yeah, kind of an intense guy. When he hit adulthood, when he started to 18, 19, he hated the world, and he was like, "I'm sick of this country. I'm going to rebel." And then he auditioned this song, and while he couldn't really sing, which he admits himself, he couldn't carry a note in those early days, his performance was enough for Malcolm McLaren to absolutely fall in love with this charismatic, powerful young man.
Yeah, it's like they say, you don't even have to know how to sing. All you gotta do is be a punk.
You've just got to have stage presence, and Johnny Rotten had it in spades. He was also able to quote Shakespeare randomly and throw that into his fucking performances. So
that's fun at parties.
I know. And he was an intellectual, but he wasn't a posh intellectual. He was just really well read. So after Lydon joined, McLaren dubbed him Johnny Rotten and shortened the band's name to simply Sex Pistols, stating that he wanted... Yes. Remove the from Facebook and just call it Facebook. Stating that he wanted to give the impression of sexy young assassins. That's my Malcolm McLaren impression. He talked a lot like this, and he was very posh, but he also had a weird high voice, and it was quite distracting. So in May 1977, a few months after McLaren replaced Matlock with untalented 20-year-old Sid Vicious, whose name was also John, by the way. They're all fucking John, supposedly because Matlock liked the Beatles. I actually think it's got more to do with the fact that he was starting to decline mentally with really intense OCD. He would wash his hands continuously to the point of them bleeding.
Oh, geez.
Yeah. So
that's a lot.
That's a lot. it was probably good that he left the band. He would later rejoin them many, many years later for reunion shows and stuff like that, which was good because Glenn Matlock was an actual bass player, whereas Sid Vicious could not play a fucking note.
But he looked cool.
He looked amazing doing it. And they even unplugged him towards the end of his. They were like, he's not even playing bass anymore. We've just like pulled the cord when he wasn't looking, because otherwise it would just ruin everyone else's timings, because they drilled lots and lots and lots and practice, but Sid came in late.
He should have done that when I was playing in a band.
Yeah, and with punks, it's the same. It's the same thing with the Ramones. Like the Ramones drilled their act for days and days, months and months, weeks, at a time to perfect that performance.
No, I meant unplugged me.
I'm sure you were good. Like no one's that. Come on, no,
I wouldn't remember.
No, okay. Neither would Sid. But in May 1970, I always thought the name was another name for a penis. Learn something new every day. What's that? Is that John or Sid or
Sid Vicious?
Sid Vicious.
Ooh, that's a name for one.
Maybe. I mean, it works. I mean, that's certainly the reason Nancy fell in love with him. In May 1977, a few months after McLaren replaced Matlock with Sid Vicious, the band released the anti-monarchy protest song "God Save the Queen" during the week of the Queen's Silver Jubilee. So 25 years on the throne, and here's this impossible to not listen to. Sex Pistols. Yeah, it absolutely was. Like deliberately a penis thing. Yeah, that's what he was going for. Malcolm McLaren organized a boat trip attended by punk luminaries and Virgin Records boss Richard Branson, who had picked up their contract from EMI, who'd like immediately fired them when they realized that they were quite controversial and naughty boys. Richard Branson. This boat sailed up and down the Thames, loudly performing music the whole time, specifically God Save the Queen multiple times outside the Houses of Parliament on the night of the Queen's Silver Jubilee celebration.
Did they hear?
Oh, yeah, they heard. Let's revisit some of the lyrics to God Save the Queen, shall we? God Save the Queen, the fascist regime. They made you a moron, a potential H-bomb. God save the Queen. She ain't no human being. And there's no future. And England's dreaming. Don't be told what you want. Don't be told what you need. There's no future, no future, no future for you. God save the Queen, because tourists are money, and our figurehead is not what she seems. Oh, when there's no future, how can there be sin? We're the flowers in the dustbin. We're the poison in your human machine. We're the future, your future. And then the song ends with 3 loops of no future, no future, no future for you. Honestly, go and listen to Nevermind the Bollocks. Here's the Sex Pistols. Yeah, I'm sure that went over really well. They're parked outside of the Houses of Parliament, next to the House of Lords, near the Royal, like near Westminster. Not far from the Queen, singing this at full blast multiple times from a boat in the middle of the Thames. Go and listen to Nevermind the Bollocks, Here's the Sex Pistols. It's one of the best albums of all time. And it's also a really rare example of a genuinely raw, underground punk album going multi-times platinum. This thing sold fucking millions of copies.
It's fun time, is what it is.
It hits hard. The opening track is really good, Holiday in the Sun. And then it goes into Bodies, which is about abortion. And Metallica played it on like an MTV show, and they had to cut the performance. It's one of the most intense, disturbing songs I've ever heard. And for it to be the second, and the opening riff is amazing. But if you ever get a chance to listen to Nevermind the Bollocks, Here's the Sex Pistols, it is raw, it's powerful, it's protesting, and it's brilliant. It's so, you feel these 18, 19-year-old kids' energy in this, and it's really good. Like, it's not just like, oh, shit music. They can play. Yeah, I'm sure that went over well. I love that. So the boat was raided by the police.
Oops.
As soon as it came to shore, Richard Branson poked his head out and said to the police, "Listen, you're going to come on board and arrest these people. I don't want you to attack them. They're my artists. They're precious to me." And there's a documentary called The Filth and the Fury, which you can view for free, by the way, on YouTube if you Google that. One of the best documentaries ever made. They pause it when Richard Branson's talking to the police because the cameras were there filming this raid and attack by the police. And Richard Branson is just a massive ball of hair. And they were like, he looks like Catweasel. It's Johnny Rotten in the background, just taking the piss out of everyone. Anyway, the boat, the police raided the boat, and they just attacked everyone. They beat the shit out of absolutely everyone. There were like 50 police waiting to come on this boat. They beat up everyone. Billy Idol was there, Adam and the Ants, all like Shane McGowan from the Pogues, all of these like early punk icons. I think Debbie Harry might have been there. All of these people are on this boat and they're getting beaten with batons and stuff. And Sid and Nancy just like casually walk off because he's like hugging her and cuddling her, and they just walk off, no problems. Yeah.
Oh wow!
I know, he got away. He got away lightly that night. The song "God Save the Queen" went to -- in the singles charts. The first week it was released, it outsold like the other top 10 singles combined. It was also the week of the Queen's Silver Jubilee. It was immediately censored by the entire British music press. And so instead of the name of the song and the artist being at #1 for the first time and only time in history, there was just the #1 followed by a blank space. And that had the opposite effect because people wanted to find out what the song was. They looked into it. They found out it was the Sex Pistols. They wanted to know what the deal was. And they went out and bought the record. And it increased the sales 130% again.
Ha ha.
Brilliant. Honestly, the funniest part of this whole thing as well is that when people saw it in stores, because it has the Union Jack behind it, it's God Save the Queen, Union Jack on it. This was released on the week of the Queen's Silver Jubilee. A bunch of older people didn't realize it was a protest song and just went out and bought it as well.
Oh, I love that.
Amazing. And they were refused refunds when they tried to take it back to the record store. So the record stores who didn't want to name it also wouldn't give refunds. Honestly, it's one of the smartest marketing campaigns in modern history, and they didn't spend a penny advertising the single, and it was #1 for 3 weeks.
Oh,
Millions
that's awesome.
sold.
Now,
yeah,
I gotta think though that some of that is just because people were like angry at the whole monarchy.
A lot of people were angry at this point. And the monarchy is the representation of the institutions and powers of government. So if a protest song does that, people are going to buy it and they are going to, play it wherever you go. And the 1970s in England, no one had a job. Trash was piling up in the street. Power cuts randomly during the day. We had a 4-day working week. It was bad. Industrial action everywhere. Really.
And they were like, it'll fix this. We will censor this song, and that'll fix fucking everything.
Forget all the other stuff. Now watch some adverts. Anyway, the band released their album, Nevermind the Bollocks, Here Comes the Sex Pistols, in October 1977 and played their last UK gig before embarking upon a US tour in January 1978. In the United Kingdom, the album was subject to what one journalist described as blatant acts of censorship exercised by media and retail outlets alike. London police visited the city's Virgin record store branches, because Richard Branson also had record stores at the time, and told them they faced prosecution for indecency as stipulated by the 1899 Indecency in Advertisements Act if they continued to display posters of the album cover in the window. The displays were either toned down or removed. However, on the 9th of November 1977, just 2 days before the album was released in the US, the London Evening Standard announced on its front page headline, "Police move in on punk disc shops," and reported how a Virgin Record shop manager in Nottingham was arrested for displaying the record after being warned to cover up the word bollocks.
Oh, that's
the issue. I know.
What?
I know. It's so stupid. And Chris Searle, the shop's manager, it would appear willingly set himself up as a target, possibly at Richard Branson's behest. Branson wanted to sell more records. He wanted to keep the headlines coming in. And according to music journalist Clint Halen, who noted the store in Nottingham had been visited by police on 4 occasions that day. And every time they went away and told him to take it down, he just put it back up again. Mm-hmm. Just going away, put it back up, put it back. And then eventually they just arrested him because he's baiting the police at that point. So after Searle's arrest, Richard Branson announced that he would cover the manager's legal costs and hired Queen's counsellor John Mortimer as defence. Meanwhile, advertisements for Nevermind the Bollocks appeared in music papers attempting to politicize the issue, showing newspaper headlines about Sex Pistols controversies that were underlined with the message, "The album will last, the sleeve may not." Yeah, so the album is plastered all over the front page of every newspaper in the UK, which at the time, the 70s is the golden age of press circulation. Everyone buys a newspaper in the UK, and it's on the front cover of every paper, no matter what your political leanings, it's there. So the defense in this case stated that a double standard was apparently at play and that Bollocks was considered obscene when it appeared on the cover of a Sex Pistols album. The prosecutor conducted his cross-examination as if the album itself and not its lurid visage was on trial for indecency. So they were trying to get the album banned, not the cover. It was like a secret thing. The defense barrister produced an expert witness, Professor James Kinsley, head of the School of English at the University of Nottingham, who argued that the word bollocks was not obscene and was actually a legitimate Old English term formerly used to refer to a priest, and which in the context of the title meant nonsense. That's kind of interesting argument. So he's like, bollocks doesn't mean what you think it means. It's actually from this term from the 13th century that means priest or nonsense. However, lawyer Geoffrey Robertson, who appeared for the prosecution, recalled the professor saying that early English translations of the Bible used bollocks to refer to testicles, this being replaced by the word stones in the King James version of the Bible. At which point, Johnny Rotten handed his defense counsel, what was his name here, Robertson, a note which said, "Don't worry, if we lose the case, we'll retitle the album Never Mind the Stones, Here's the Sex Pistols."
There you go.
That's fucking brilliant. Super double meaning with that one. The chair of the hearing, the judge, concluded, "Much as my colleagues and I wholeheartedly deplore the vulgar exploitation of the worst instincts of human nature for the purchases of commercial profits by both you and your company, we must reluctantly find you not guilty of each of the 4 charges." So even though we hate you because we're fucking conservative prudes, we can't find anything wrong with what you've done, so off you go.
Well,
yeah.
Now, you know what? I don't know why this just occurred to me, the whole bollocks and the Sex Pistols thing, the balls and the nuts, and I get it now. Never paying
mind
too
bollocks.
much attention to the
Never mind the balls. Here's the penis.
Gotcha.
That's what it's going for, I think.
Yeah, I think so. I did not know that until just right now. And
also,
I
the
have
Sex
that
Pistols.
album.
Yeah. Also, the Sex Pistols were famous before they released their album. They were kind of like the Beastie Boys in a lot of ways, who were like quite big before they launched their album. So the whole Never Mind the Bollocks thing is in reference to the fact that they were stirring controversy from the very start. And that's part of it, but also Never Mind the Bollocks, here's the penis. Like that's the implication. It's very cool.
It's they're smart. They're smart, dumb kids.
So smart, these kids, and the album just sold like hotcakes. It's one of the highest selling punk albums of all time worldwide. It's a crazy high number they sold. McLaren was accused by the band, unfortunately, almost immediately, of mismanaging them and refusing to pay them when they asked him for money. So he was like controlling the purse strings. And it's not unheard of musicians, particularly I think of like NSYNC and the issues they had with Ron, whatever his name was, and the Backstreet Boys. They sued their manager. I think he's now serving life in prison for something else. because they were being paid like peanuts. They got like $90,000 a year each or something, and they were earning tens of millions for their record label. So it was even worse for the Stones. Malcolm McLaren would pay them in increments when they were on tour, and he would give them like, here you go, here's £10, go and get yourself some like fish and chips for the next few days. McLaren stated that he had planned out the entire career path of the Sex Pistols, which he illustrated in the film The Great Rock and Roll Swindle. He deliberately set them up to not have a lengthy career. He'd made sure of that, and he kept as much of the money for himself as possible. The Pistols' January 1978 tour was initially scheduled for 9 dates, but due to Sid Vicious's drug use and the breakdown in relationship between John Lydon and Malcolm McLaren, the show was cut short after 5 shows played over 12 days. It was delayed due to American authorities' reluctance to issue a visa to Jones, because once or twice he'd been caught stealing. So
from all over the place,
all the times he'd stolen stuff, leading to the cancellation of several dates in the Northeast. Although the tour had been highly anticipated in the US, it was plagued by infighting and allegedly poor planning and outright sabotage by Malcolm McLaren, who was doing this deliberately to drive a wedge between the rest of the band and Sid and John, leading to frustrated and belligerent audiences who tried to attack the band constantly. Yeah,
it's a punk thing.
That's a punk
thing. Seems like he
just
sure does this then, huh? He drives wedges.
Fucks with people, to be honest. Early in the tour, Vicious was arrested while trying to buy heroin in Memphis. That wasn't smart. Buy heroin in Memphis.
That seems like a weird place to buy heroin, but I've never been to Memphis, so
I'm sure there's parts of Memphis that have drugs available, but I don't associate Memphis with heroin.
Yeah, I guess it's everywhere. I mean, but it just
I'm sure there is.
Memphis is barbecue and stuff.
Yeah, and like Graceland and like Easy Time and stuff, right? Yeah, surely. And also he was beaten up by the security that was hired by Warner Brothers Music because he'd been spitting on them and stuff.
Whoops.
Yeah.
By his own security?
Beaten up by his own security. Sid Vicious was a big, like, lanky dude, but he wasn't a fighter. And also he's strung out on heroin a lot of the time, so he can't really fight back. He subsequently appeared with the words "Gimme a fix" scarred on his chest because he'd broken a bottle and just carved it into his fucking upper body. Horrible. Oops. Just bleeding everywhere. During a concert in San Antonio, Vicious called the crowd, I can't use that word. It's a derogatory term for people from the LGBTQ community.
Okay.
And before hitting an audience member on the head with his bass guitar, just smashed them in the back of the head with his bass. That could kill someone.
Yeah, it can.
Those 70s bass guitars were heavy as fuck, weren't they?
Any of them that's some damage, man.
Serious. Suffering from heroin withdrawal during a show in Dallas, he spat blood on a woman who immediately climbed on stage and punched him in the face, knocking him unconscious.
That seems like a reasonable reaction.
I would say so. Those Dallas women do not fuck around. He was admitted to hospital later that night to treat various injuries. Offstage, he was said to have kicked a photographer, attacked a security guard, and challenged one of his own bodyguards to a fight. I mean, he's just off the rails at this point. Yeah. Sid, just
way off the rails.
Yeah.
Off into a field.
Exactly. Like, he's just fucking roaming free and wild at this point. Johnny Rotten, at the same time, was suffering from flu and coughing up blood because he wasn't a singer and he didn't really have a warm-up routine. So he just screamed night after night. And he's a kid and he's skinny. So he's going to end up coughing up blood. And also he had meningitis when he was a kid. So that's what put him in a coma. So,
so he's just ripping himself apart.
Basically, yeah. And he was increasingly isolated from Cook and Jones because of Malcolm McLaren's meddling and was like genuinely afraid of Sid Vicious by this point. Jones later said that he and Cook couldn't stand being around Johnny and Sid anymore. You couldn't turn around for a minute without Sid starting a fight. Then on top of that, you had Rotten, who was on his own trip and basically thought he was God by that stage. This isn't good. just a hint, they've only been around for about 18 months at this point. On January the 14th, 1978, during the tour's final date at the Winterland Ballroom in San Francisco, a disillusioned Rotten introduced the band's encore, saying, "You'll get one number and one number only because I'm a lazy bastard."
Well, at least he's honest about it.
Yeah, and it's also very punk. So the one number was a Stooges cover, "No Fun."
Okay.
Really great song. At the end of the song, Rotten kneeling on the stage, chanting unambiguously declarations of, "This is no fun, no fun. This is not fun at all, no fun." As the final cymbal crash died away, Rotten addressed the audience directly and went, "Ha ha, ever get the feeling you've been cheated? Good night." And before throwing his microphone down and walking off stage, he later observed, "I felt cheated. I was going on with it. I wasn't going on with it any longer. It was ridiculous at this point. Sid was completely out of his brains, just a waste of space. The whole thing was a joke at that point. Malcolm wouldn't speak to me. He wouldn't discuss anything with me. But then he would turn around and tell Paul and Steve that the tension was all my fault because I wouldn't agree to anything." So, yeah.
He's playing that bullshit.
He's fucking with them for no good reason. You could make so much money off these kids if you just kept them together, and he's just pushing them all off the rails.
Well, he just wants that short-term money, and he doesn't want to screw around with it no more. He doesn't want the actual work of managing them.
He doesn't want the legacy. He wants the fast money. And also, I should point out at this point, I think it's Steve Jones was a sex addict at this point, like a really bad sex addict. He was having sex multiple times a day wherever they went, and that was something that he struggled with for the rest of his life. So thankfully he's getting help, but yeah, they were all out of control at this point. One of them was seriously ill, the other one was addicted to heroin and with Nancy, and the other one was a sex addict, and the other one, I don't know, it's got Malcolm McLaren in his ear. On the 17th of January, the band traveled separately to Los Angeles. Vicious, in increasingly bad shape, was brought by a friend who then took him to New York, where, after taking a mixture of Valium and methadone, later excused as nervous exhaustion, was hospitalized on arrival in the fucking city. They just went straight to the hospital. Rotten flew to New York to visit Vicious and announced the band's breakup on the 18th of January. Virtually broke after McLaren had withheld money from him for months, he telephoned the head of Virgin Records, Richard Branson, who agreed to pay for his flight back to London and pick him up from the airport. So Richard Branson has his faults. He kind of fucked the NHS in a couple of ways, but when it comes time to looking after his talent, he does usually come through. So good for him, because Malcolm McLaren kept all of that money from the tour.
That sucks.
Awful behavior.
Like, I need to come home. I don't have any money because some asshole kept it all, and I can't even get home.
No, so So Richard Branson has got to pay for his flight and his taxi home. I hope he bought him some fucking food as well, because this kid was suffering at this point. Fucking 19, 20 years old, coughing up blood in the middle of nowhere. They didn't really get America. They were touring places in America that they shouldn't have been doing. They should have been doing New York and LA for their first tour, and that's kind of it. You do the two big places for punk and like just stop. Do the other tours in the Midwest and Texas and all of that. Do that 2-3 albums in when you're bigger and you're more seasoned. They're 19, 20-year-old. They can't handle these kind of audiences. They have no cultural connection with these people at all, and it's not going to translate. So anyway, yeah. It's not a good scene. Anyway, the following year, Lydon initiated legal proceedings against McLaren and the Pistols' management company Glitterbest, which McLaren controlled. Among the claims were non-payment of royalties, improper usage of the title Johnny Rotten, unfair contractual obligations, and damages for all the criminal activities that took place. He was furnishing them with drugs. Hearings for Lydon's lawsuit began on the 7th of February 1979, 5 days after Sid Vicious's overdose death. He wasn't in a good place because that was his friend. He also, and I feel really bad for John Lydon. If you watch The Filth and the Fury, he cries when he talks about Sid. And he also says that heroin is the worst drug because it kills creativity, which is actually a good point. that being said, like Ray Charles wrote a bunch of great music on heroin, but anyway, he talks about introducing Sid Vicious to Nancy. It was him that introduced them, and he was like, if I hadn't done that, I think my best friend might still be alive. And it's really heartbreaking.
Yeah.
To know that this kid died so young. So
yeah, that sucks. And heroin is like bad juju, man.
It really is. But also I feel like that's survivor's guilt. I feel like Johnny Rotten came out of this a much stronger person, and him looking at what happened to Sid and blaming himself. Like, you can introduce Sid to a bunch of different people. He probably did throughout his life. Like, hey, here's Paul and Steve. Like, they didn't kill him, and Nancy didn't kill him. She just furnished him with drugs because she was able to get hold of them. She'd been doing it for the New York Dolls for years. So, that's not your fault. That's not on you, dude. Other shit is, but not that, So anyway, hearings for Lydon's lawsuit began on the 7th of February 1979, 5 days after Vicious's death. Cook and Jones initially allied themselves with McLaren, but as evidence mounted that their manager and supposed best friend had basically spent virtually all of the band's revenue on his bullshit film project, they switched sides. So they're like, you stole from us, you motherfucker, we're going. So on the 14th of February, Valentine's Day, the court put the film and its soundtrack into receivership, no longer under Malcolm McLaren's control. They were now to be administered as exploitable assets for addressing the band members' financial claims. So basically, the court has found in their favor.
Okay.
At this point, McLaren was left with substantial personal debts, millions, and legal fees. McLaren went on to carry out a month of consultation for Adam and the Ants, and managed their offshoot Bow Wow Wow.
Really? Did he break them up too?
Probably. Lydon's feelings of being used by McLaren formed the creative impetus for his subsequent band, Public Image Limited, which their first album is really cool. It's a double album. Dr. J, love this so far. Are we going to get Johnny Rotten's support for Trump and Brexit? We are going to get to John Lydon's declining decision-making skills slightly later on. He's... Anyway, he's a little bit fascist, and he likes the powerful men. So he's like, oh yeah, we need this guy can take his places. Yeah, fuck Europe. Yeah, actually, we are now fucked because we're not in Europe. So the contractual rights to the Sex Pistols' name were disputed in the case brought by Lydon, Jones, and Cook, and the estate of Sid Vicious in 1979 against the company. In 1986, the High Court awarded the rights to the group's name, The Great Rock and Roll Swindle, that bullshit film that he stole the money to make, the artwork, the master tapes, and the group's income for all of that time to Lydon and the band. Nothing went to Malcolm McLaren. They got millions of pounds. Nice. Yes. And rightly so. They wrote the fucking music. They performed it. They toured. And this guy stole from them. That's it. That's all. But
it was his image, man. He came up with the whole, he put them together and manipulated it all.
I wanted sexy young assassins.
Yeah.
Well, who gives a shit? Like, it's like the argument Stanley and Steve Ditko, right? Stanley, for the longest time, had all of the rights to Spider-Man. And his contribution to the creation of Spider-Man is he's a young man, he's a little bit awkward, and he's going to wear a spider suit. Go away and design it, Steve. And Steve Ditko comes back with this beautiful blue and red, iconic character, and the look of Peter Parker being this, like, not muscular, like skinny kid. Like an every kid, like a 14-year-old, like no muscle on him whatsoever. And Stan Lee took all of, because he owned the IP, like he took all of the credit for it. And it took years for Steve Ditko to get any money for his part in the creation of Spider-Man. You can say, go away and create me this thing. But if you're the artist that visually creates this thing, you deserve equal credit, at least. And for the longest time, these people who did all of the work got nothing except like money where they could get interviews and talk about it and release a book about it and stuff. But they finally got the money. In the 2000 film The Filth and the Fury, which I've mentioned a few times, it's available on YouTube. Go and watch it. The surviving members of the Sex Pistols gave their version of events. McLaren is portrayed during his time as the Sex Pistols manager by David Heyman in the film Sid and Nancy by Thomas Brody Sangster in the miniseries Pistol. Sid and Nancy is a great film. It's a very early Gary Oldman film. Really highly recommend that. That's a really interesting but dark film. But The Filth and the Fury is a great documentary, not just because it's got everyone involved in it, but also it's got stock footage. And they talk about the state of Britain at the time and the state of the world and what was going on in culture. And it's actually a really interesting documentary. It's made by Julian Temple, who is a known documentary filmmaker, and whose daughter Juno Temple is an actress, and she was in Ted Lasso and the Dark Knight films and stuff. She's been in a bunch of films. McLaren would go on to have a successful music career of his own. I just want to say that Malcolm McLaren, after all this, pivots, and he does well. Little bit of redemption in a way, sort of, because he has massive debts now, and he has to start making his own music. One of the first things he does in the 1980s, in 1983, is releasing the album Duck Rock, which helped open the UK market up to hip hop. First, he brought in a bunch of New York DJs that were kind of on the rise. Also, Kares and Rakim featured on this fucking record. Big names in the underground hip hop scene. And he released it to the UK market because he saw it as being this is the next stage in music. And he was there for that. So the man's smart. He's an arsehole, but he's really smart,
Got that visionary stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. He's this could be huge over here, because he understood. He's in the right part of London to understand working class communities and different racial backgrounds of people that come into his shop and stuff. So he understands what would appeal to them, and he knows, unfortunately, how to exploit that. So
yeah.
In 1982, McLaren visited Johannesburg in South Africa. His hit song Double Dutch was taken from Puleng by, I'm going to get all of these wrong, Mabakwanga band, the Boyo Yo Boys. It was the flip side of Zeus on a Time Bomb from Tsutsi. So he's mixing with a bunch of South African musicians now.
Okay.
He also created a song called On the Road to Soweto, which was lifted from a General MD Shirinada and the Gaza Sisters song Hey Majaji, while he also stole 3 songs from the Mahatela Queens. None of the artists concerned with the songs that he stole and repurposed got any royalty payments at the time. McLaren was later sued, with a UK judge freezing all royalty payments to McLaren for the song, and the case was then settled out of court for an undisclosed sum of money, and all of these people now get royalties to this day. So he's stealing again.
Stop fucking people over, man.
Just pay people for their time. Highlight them. Be the guy that brings these people to the fore and pay them. It's not fucking hard. Don't be a dick.
Yeah.
So, in the summer of 1985, Malcolm McLaren was appointed to the position of production executive at CBS Theatrical Films, the TV and stage arm of CBS Films, working from an office on the CBS lot and living in a house in the hills above Hollywood Bowl. McLaren focused on Fans, the musical, and Fashion Beast, which he commissioned British comic book writer and living legend Alan Moore to write a script for, as in Watchmen, League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, V for Vendetta, From Hell, all of those fucking amazing comic book titles that he commissioned Alan Moore to in the 80s, who was a starving artist at the time. He also developed a raft of properties, including, here we go, heavy metal surfing Nazis.
What?
This is a film, Heavy Metal Surfing Nazis, about post-apocalyptic turf wars among gangs on California's environmentally damaged beaches. Wow.
Okay.
It's like one of those 80s VHS
Throw some
exploitation.
Nazis on there, and that'll get them. And we'll talk about the
Nazis,
environment.
Mutants, California, like
Make 'em surf.
It's perfect combination. The Rock and Roll Godfather, a biopic of Led Zeppelin's manager Peter Grant, and Wild with an E at the end, West, based on the notion of Oscar Wilde discovering the roots of rock and roll during his celebrated 1882 lecture tour of the United States. Apparently, he toured around and went to like these like bluegrass venues and these like very early blues and country places, and like heard the music, and he was like, this is the future of entertainment. Okay. Apparently Oscar Wilde was like that, and he was right, of course. McLaren gained interest in the latter project and fans the musical from Steven fucking Spielberg.
Oh
yeah. And when CBS Theatrical Films closed at the end of 1985, Steven Spielberg, for some fucking reason, employed Malcolm McLaren as an ideas guru at Spielberg's Amblin Entertainment Studio, while continuing to pitch his projects to other studios on a freelance basis. That is the sweetest fucking gig I've ever heard of in my life.
yeah. Well, wait a second. I didn't know that ideas guru was a job.
I mean, it's not, but
no. He had it. I want it. I'm going for it.
He got paid hundreds of thousands of dollars a year to live above the Hollywood Bowl and to just pitch ideas to Steven Spielberg and Amblin Films. He is a professional paid idiot to say whatever comes in his head and see if it sticks. You've got to have that one person. I was told this when I was training in television. You've got to have that one person who in the creative pitch meetings just says whatever the fuck comes in their head. And 9 times out of 10, it's garbage. But that one time might be a workable idea.
Well, like, okay, I need to figure out who I need to connect with, because that is my job.
I think so. I think we can do better than heavy metal surfing Nazis.
Oh, absolutely.
For sure.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
I've got a great idea about the self-driving trucks and retired truckers having to come back and drive the trucks.
Oh my God. Get Peter Berg in that? Or like
Bruce Willis?
Roland Emmerich or something? You got a successful film right there. Oh my God. So yeah, he's got the sweetest job of all time. And he stays there for ages. Like throughout the 80s, he's just pitching crazy ideas at Amblin, doing a bunch of art stuff in LA. In 1998, McLaren released an album, Buffalo Gals Back to School. It was he originally released a song called Buffalo Gals through Virgin Records, an album featuring hip hop artists Kares, Rakim, and De La Soul. It's kind of like a revisiting of the I was going to say Duck Soup then, but that's a fucking that's a film by the What's It Brothers. Never mind. But yeah, the original Duck album thing that he did, it was a re-release of that. Also another huge success in the late 90s. He also an article in the New Statesman published on the 20th of December 1999 titled My Vision for London included the McLaren Manifesto, which is scary.
Yeah.
Prompting speculation that McLaren might stand to be elected as mayor of London. Just
really?
what London needs.
Huh,
yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it kind of works. He's famous in London. He's an established presence. Vivian Westwood is now a very famous designer at this point. Everyone knows who the Sex Pistols are. And he managed to get funds sourced from Sony Music by rock music entrepreneur Alan McGee, the man behind artists such as My Bloody Valentine. Amazing album by those guys. That album, just one of the best ever made. He also helped start Oasis.
Okay.
Yep. And the Libertines.
Okay.
So, so kind of a famous dude. McLaren subsequently launched a campaign to stand as an independent candidate in the inaugural elections for the position in May 2000, with a range of policy proposals from environmentally sensitive traffic calming, which I like. So you have traffic calming that kicks in when like rush hour and stuff. So it's more specific. I think that probably already exists, but anyway. providing public libraries with licenses to serve alcohol. Less of a, that's not such a great idea, Malcolm.
I mean,
I think libraries are where you go to get away from alcohol licenses, right?
Right. Yeah. Okay. Give the alcohol licenses to the theaters, not the library. What the hell?
Yeah. You go to the library to chill the fuck out when nobody says anything and just read in peace. You don't need a drunk weeing in like the classic section.
You know? It's really hard to do the mind movies when you're drunk anyway.
It really is. They become very staggered.
Like I end up reading the same page like 40 times.
It becomes very bombastic. Yeah. You also vomit during it. So McLaren took the to the hustings in protest at the great political swindle of the mainstream parties who are plotting to make London expensive, oppressive, and boring. I mean, he's not wrong. It's all of that now. According to McLaren's campaign manager, the late entry into the mayoral race by Ken Livingstone forced him out of the running. Ken Livingstone would go on to win. Ken Livingstone is famously socialist and also super kind of focused on enriching areas that were like basically ignored by the Tory government. So he was a very powerful London mayor at the time, and he had the position before Boris Johnson. So
you guys had a socialist mayor in London?
Oh, we currently have a socialist mayor in London, Sadiq Khan, who people hate because he's called Sadiq Khan, unfortunately, and he's Labour, so they're blaming him for the rise in crime, even though the Tory government have control over crime budgets in London and everywhere. Oh, My Bloody Valentine, fodder for another rock and roll swindle episode. You'll definitely want to check out the story behind the making of Loveless. That's a great album. We've covered a lot of great music in this. My Bloody Valentine's album is just like, you can barely hear the lyrics in that album, but man, it's a melodic album. Super intense, like grungy sounding thing. Amazing album. So McLaren, from failing as the mayor of London, contributed a track called About Her to the soundtrack to Quentin Tarantino's 2004 film Kill Bill Volume 2.
Okay. Who do you steal that from?
Aha. The song heavily samples She's Not There by the Zombies and uses Bessie Smith's St. Louis Blues by looping the phrase, "My man's got a heart like a rock cast in the sea." So he stole it, basically.
Okay, he just mushed somebody's songs together. Gotcha.
I made a song. No, you didn't. Accused of plagiarism by French audio engineer Benjamin Bedenu, who had taken McLaren's unfinished demos from the studio. And I mean, this guy is crazy. Like, this is one of the stupidest crimes I've ever heard of in life. This French audio engineer is accused Malcolm McLaren of plagiarism. And guess what he does to kind of stop the plagiarism from happening? He steals the unfinished demos from the studio who were paying him through McLaren and fraudulently registered them to his own name, the French Composer Society, SACEM. So he's stolen the plagiarist thing.
He stole the stolen songs?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm going to stop you from releasing the stolen material by stealing it.
Brilliant.
Yeah, McLaren was cleared of plagiarism in November 2005 when a court in Angers, France, or a French court, ruled in his favor, even though Malcolm McLaren is like really difficult. Like they found in his favor, so that's pretty serious. Bedenu was ordered to pay damages, which he never paid. So, well, yeah, just fucked off. He's like, nah, it's France, I'm not paying. He continued to create multiple visual art exhibitions for years until he was diagnosed with peritoneal mesothelioma. I almost got through that. Peritoneal mesothelioma. There we go. In October 2009. The thing I just mentioned, so that I don't have to say it again, is a cancer that affects the peritoneum, which is the membrane that lines your abdomen and abdominal organs.
That's the stuff that comes from asbestos, isn't it?
That's exactly it. Asbestos exposure is the most common risk factor. And I just wonder, because he's operating in these like grimy parts of London that were like kind of thrown up after the Second World War very quickly. And he's working in the fashion industry with like reclaimed materials, reclaimed clothing. He's patching them. Him and Vivienne Westwood are patching them. They're working, they're cutting them up and stuff. I just wonder if working in this industry and in this environment is where he was exposed to asbestos in the early 70s. I think it's highly likely.
Probably.
Really.
There's probably some sort of garments or fabric or something that he wove right in, like,
yeah,
or in that building.
Exactly, like in the roof. If he's like transforming the roof to make it a different store, transforming the ceiling, knocking into the walls, he's doing a lot of it himself to save money. That's another thing. Also, these punk venues, like God knows how much shit is in those buildings, you know?
I think they use that asbestos as flame retardant and soundproofing stuff. So, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's probably everywhere. I mean, anyone who went to CBGB's at that time is probably in really bad trouble. So unfortunately, he died of the disease on the 8th of April 2010 in a hospital in Switzerland. McLaren's last words were said by his son, Joseph Correa, to have been "Free Leonard Peltier." Or Leonard Peltier, I'm not sure how you pronounce that. Leonard Peltier, or Peltier, is a Native American activist and a member of the American Indian Movement, AIM, who, following a controversial trial, was convicted of 2 counts of aiding and abetting the murder in the deaths of 2 Federal Bureau of Investigation agents in a June 26, 1975 shooting on the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation in South Dakota.
Okay.
So,
isn't that the group that wants the Redskins to be the Redskins again?
Yeah, I think it is. It's kind of weird. I don't see how that helps their cause, really. But yeah,
it all is too confusing for me. Well, so wait, he wants to free the person that shot the FBI guys. That was his last words, but his last words were said by his son.
Well, that's what his son says were his last words. I don't know who's coherent enough on chemo and radiotherapy drugs to say free this political dissident from Dakota. I think most people's last words are.
My last words are going to be like, well, fuck. All right, then.
Yeah, I guess so. The Leonard Peltier thing is for cranks. I get that sense. It doesn't make sense to me. It's like that whole thing about the king's last words were, "Oh, we'll go on holiday to Bognor after this," and his last words were apparently "Bugger Bognor," and then he died. So I don't believe that at all. Tributes to McLaren poured in from friends, associates, and fans, including John Lydon, who have been at odds with McLaren since the demise of the Sex Pistols. And these are a couple of quotes from him. "For me, Malk was always entertaining. I hope you remember that. Above all else, he was an entertainer, and I will miss him. And so should you." He also later went on in the same article to say, "Malcolm McLaren didn't inspire. He took credit for things he didn't do, so fuck him. I'm not great." And then ... "I'm not great at dealing with death." So
fair enough. He's all over the place there.
He really is. Like, leave him alone. He was an entertainer. Also, fuck him because he stole everything. I mean, yeah, both are accurate.
Yeah, nailed it.
Yeah. McLaren was laid to rest in a coffin spray painted with the slogan "Too fast to live, too young to die." McLaren's funeral was attended by Vivienne Westwood, the Sex Pistols bandmates Paul Cook and Glenn Matlock, and celebrities such as Bob Geldof, artist Tracy Emin, and Adamant. Bob Geldof later told John Lydon that at the funeral there was a huge row between Vivienne Westwood and Bernie Rhodes, who was the manager of the Clash. And according to Lydon, who then said, "I mean, the man's dead. What are you people doing?" And hearing this and the way Bob told it, so Irish and brilliant and so full of humor, I felt really, really sorry for Malcolm at that point, that these sods couldn't even let him die in peace. They were out for their own little angles. And I personally think, and this is the end of the story now, to be honest, I think the spirit of Malcolm McLaren was probably watching all of this happen, thinking he played a part in the chaos, because that's what he was known for. He was an agent of chaos, and that's kind of what he did. And that's the story of Malcolm McLaren. Interesting, kind of fucked up.
went out with chaos, and he organized it all himself with a
he did.
Dumb last quote.
Really dumb last quote, and probably not true.
Yeah.
So, what do you think of Malcolm McLaren? I don't want to. So, I want to point out that he did create things. He did borrow a lot, but he was also a musician. He did some, also some jazz pieces. He did a bunch of digital art exhibitions at some point. He was the kind of person who was very clever, very good at managing and manipulating people, but not so great at creating original pieces himself.
Well, yeah, just the suck thing is that he just manipulated the hell out of people, and that's just not cool.
It really is. No real reason a lot of the time.
Inadvertently pushed people to death, I think.
I think so. I think if he'd been a more adult guiding hand to these people, I mean, look, you're not going to stop drug addicts from doing drugs, but you can certainly help them to get away from them. And I don't think he did that, unfortunately.
Well, if he wouldn't have like done Johnny Rotten and Sid and the band the way he did, we could have had like more good Sex Pistols music that came out. Like there could have been more albums.
Absolutely. Like I'm not for a moment suggesting that the Sex Pistols would have been like the Rolling Stones and just done fucking album after album for decades and like still performing in their 80s. But I think we probably could have got 3 albums out of the Sex Pistols for sure.
Yeah. You know? Yeah. That's unfortunate.
Yeah.
The manipulation thing I don't like, because that's like knowingly being a jackwagon for your own, like that's narcissistical or
I feel like he got his kicks from that, kind of manipulating people, to be honest.
And so that'll be the biggest reason why he's getting a higher score. That and the what is it, intellectual property, the IP kleptoness.
Stealing from people and then not paying them their dues is like his other main thing, like just keeping all the money for himself.
Right, which is why I will also give him a 75.
I'm happy for that. I think that's a fair, because obviously, like, he didn't kill anyone. That's always our go-to. Like, he didn't kill anyone, and he's certainly less violent than, Charlie Sheen. But Charlie Sheen feels like someone who was dealing with a significant addiction issue throughout his entire life, and that kind of clouds a lot of his issues and the problems. Like, a lot of that is because he has this thing, he can't control it, and at times he doesn't want to control it because he just loves being an addict. Malcolm McLaren was not an addict. He was a manipulator, and he enjoyed it.
Yeah, that's calculating.
Yeah. And that's why I think everyone knows a Malcolm McLaren at some point in their life. And the problem is that they're very good at what they do. They are very good at manipulating you. They're very good at taking advantage of you financially or emotionally or whatever it might be. And unfortunately, they will create victims around them because that's sort of what they do. And it is very, very sad. But it's also important for you to recognize that of them. And I feel like Malcolm's manipulation is part of a wider thing of like artistic expression that he was totally a part of, but he could have been like, he's not the worst. I mean, certainly in the music industry, he's not the most manipulative person there's ever been. Not even close to like the top 20. But had he been a little bit more focused on making the Sex Pistols have more longevity, the world of music could be a very different place now. I mean, it is because of that first album anyway. It was a huge seminal point in music history, but had they stuck around, maybe experimented, maybe moved punk into different directions, which Public Image Limited did, it's still punk music, but it's like slightly different. It's interesting punk music. Not that isn't, but it's like, it's experimental. Right. I feel like we could have had a slightly different twist on music now. The image we have of punk back then would have been very different if we'd seen that evolution, I think.
Yeah, it would have been. It could have been nice. We'll never know.
We will never know. So if you want to know more about Malcolm McLaren, and he's written books which are a fair fabrication going on in them, but I would definitely recommend watching Filth and the Fury because it is every member of the Sex Pistols. Okay. So it's not just John Lydon, it's literally everyone and like their families and friends and stuff. So it's a bunch of people talking about everything that went down, and the general consensus is Malcolm McLaren was fucking with everyone. And it's a great documentary. Again, you can watch it on YouTube. I will warn you that the YouTube quality is that of the early 2000s, i.e. potato vision, but you can still watch it and get the general gist. It's a great film, really kind of moves along at a nice pace. But yeah, so that was Malcolm McLaren, who scores a 75, and Charlie Sheen, who scores a 74. Two people where you look at, elements of redemption in both stories. Malcolm McLaren kind of made good on after he'd been sued multiple times by different people. He started to be a creative influence and also opening up the market to the UK, opening the UK market up to hip hop. Like that's a huge deal right there.
Yeah.
Well done for that. And also the cool art he made, the fact that without Malcolm McLaren, we kind of don't get Vivienne Westwood. And we don't get punk fashion. We don't get punk iconography. We don't get a change in the way the UK clothing industry works. And the influence of Vivienne Westwood, her first big start was this store Sex. That's where she made her first splash. So for that and for the Sex Pistols, brilliant. Thank you, Malcolm. Wish you'd been a little bit of a better person. Charlie Sheen had a problem and seems to have dealt with it. So I think the big lesson here is that ultimate redemption is possible with time, especially when you analyze people's good points instead of constantly making their existence and their life about the worst moments of their life.
Yeah,
like don't pick apart people's existence based on the terrible shit that they've done and they regret. Focus on the stuff that they've done that's good, because that will generally outweigh the bad shit. I guarantee it.
Indeed.
Yeah. So thank you all for dropping by. I want to remind you again that we will only be posting on Instagram. So if you want to follow us, go to @History'sGreatestIdiots on Instagram. And if you want to become a Patreon or a patron on Patreon, and just drop us a little bit of money so that we can maybe make this full time at some point in the future, which is like our dream. Go on patreon.com/historysgreatestidiots and you will get a free gift. And also you will have access to special behind the scenes unreleased episodes that we do exclusively on Patreon. You'll also get your name read out on every podcast. You will get special gifts at the 1 and 2 year anniversary level. You'll get access to our scripts behind the scene, and also new special features that we will be doing in the future. So look out for those. Thank you, everyone who's attended. Dr. J, the Familiar Wilson's Media, go and find those guys. Amazing podcasts and work they do. And Josh Wilson is a really good musician as well. So
always fun conversations on that show.
Love that family. Just the best people. Thank you, Kimberly, and to all of our patrons. Andrew Zavara. I'm going to try and do this without looking at the thing. Kimberly, Andrew Zavara, Bob Dilly Bob, and who's our OG? Jesse Christ. How could I forget our OG? Thank you to all of our wonderful patrons. And we will see you again very soon. I have a really cool idea for the next one, and I don't want to spoil it, but it's either an unkillable soldier,
okay,
or what was it? It was like a specific geographic thing that involves a tract of land that is unclaimed by any country on the planet that you can go and live on right now.
It's not Antarctica, is it?
No.
Okay.
It's a desert. But but you can go and live there right now. It's dangerous, but you can go and live there, and nobody else does. You can claim your own paradise right now.
Thank you.
Maybe not. Maybe not in the desert. So until then, thank you all very much. Derek, would you like to say goodbye, please?
Goodbye, everybody.
We'll see you again in a couple of weeks. Take care now. Bye.